Alright, so what we'll continue to do inshallah in the rest of the time is start with Surah Al-Baqarah. Alright, so Surah Al-Baqarah is by far the longest surah in the Quran. When you take a look at when it was revealed, now how long it actually is, it's around 2.5 juz, just 2 pages shy of being 2.5 juz, which is at least 1 juz longer than the closest surah to it. So it's 1 juz longer, it's actually a whole full juz longer than the closest surah, which is Surah Nisa, to it. So it's a very, very long surah. It's 286 verses. Which is also, in terms of numbers, is the longest surah that we have. So Surah Al-Baqarah when was it revealed? Let's go by the same sequence that we did at the beginning in the introduction. So we have to understand the double layers in terms of its coordinates. In terms of where it is in the Quran, it's right at the beginning. It's the first surah, basically. So the Fatiha is almost like just the code, the key, is just what you're going to keep in mind when you're reading the rest. It's like the interface, it's like the introduction. Surah Al-Baqarah is the first surah. So it's number 1 in terms of the sequence of the Quran. But when was it revealed to the Prophet ﷺ? If we're going to talk about sequence of revelation, it was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ in the early Madani period. So after he did his hijrah, so after 13 years of him of his prophecy ﷺ, once he made it to Medina ﷺ, it was in those first 4 to 5 years. The bulk of it came in the first 3, and then later on it continued to be revealed slowly throughout his life. The last ayah that was ever revealed to the Prophet ﷺ is also an ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah. So it continued to trickle through the rest of the Madani period, but the bulk of it, most of the surah, was revealed in the first couple of years of Medina. And the reason being is that Surah Al-Baqarah establishes the basics of the deen. It establishes a lot of the basics that the Prophet ﷺ was now, he ran a state, he had followers, he was an elected leader of Yathrib, of Medina, and now he's going to establish the system, so he needed a surah that was going to come and help him do that, alayhi salatu wasalam. And it's called Al-Baqarah. And we're going to talk about the reason it's called Al-Baqarah, because it's a really, really important reason to know why it was called the cow. Have you ever noticed the names of the surahs of the Quran? I advise you, if you haven't really looked at the names, specifically if you haven't looked at the names, if you've only seen the names in Arabic, and you're just used to them, take a look at the names of the surahs from an English perspective. And go through the names in English. You'll be blown away, because it's just so different, the way it hits you. Like you can explain to a non-Muslim that these are the chapters of our book. The cow, the family of Imran, women, the spreadsheet, the table. And just these surahs were given these names for specific reasons. There's always a wisdom. I didn't talk about that much in the lessons I did during the Ramadan, because it takes at least 10-15 minutes to kind of explain where that came from. But here, inshallah, we'll do that a bit more. Now, so we'll come to that, inshallah, in a bit. So Surah Al-Baqarah, starting at the beginning, take a look at the first. You should have a Quran with you. Try to walk out, because I'll walk you through the ayat, inshallah. Stopping at, breaking it down into paragraphs and showing you the different divisions of Surah Al-Baqarah. So the first 29 verses, if you take a look at the first 29, and it's not a coincidence that the number 29 is what do they call it? A prime number, right? So it's a prime number. So in the first 29 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah are the Quran introduction. Are basically the introduction to the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're very, very important verses, and they talk about specific things. What do they talk about? Let's go through them quickly, what they talk about. The first ayah, Alif Lam Mim, Dhalika al-Kitab. Now, just because we're starting out, I have to talk about those letters that come at the beginning of the surah, just to put it aside. You're going to find surahs in the Quran that start with these letters. Alif Lam Mim, Alif Lam Mim Ra, Alif Lam Mim Sad, Kaf Ha Ya Ain Sad, Ha Mim, Sad, Qaf, Noon, all these surahs that start with letters. Now, some of these surahs have similar beginnings, and these ones have similarities that we'll talk about. Like whenever you find surahs that all have Alif Lam Mim or Alif Lam Mim Ra, these surahs are similar. There are certain lines that bring them together, and generally surahs that start with these letters have similarities as well. The Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah Al-Imran, they come together. They always come together. The Prophet ﷺ called them as Zahrawan. Zahr is flowers. So the two flowering surahs, meaning if you learn them and you understand them, then that will have an effect on you in your life. And the Prophet ﷺ said that those who memorize these surahs and love these surahs and recite these surahs a lot, they will come as two clouds on the Day of Judgment when you're standing under the sun, and they will keep you they'll keep you cool Yawm al-Qiyamah if this is so, and they'll stand for you Yawm al-Qiyamah as well. They'll defend you. Well, not only if you memorize them and understand them, but the point being that we implement them in our lives. And Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah Al-Imran have that level of importance. So Surah Al-Baqarah, the first is Alif Lam Mim. When you go through Arabic literature, it's important to understand the Quran that you have some understanding of maybe a bit of Arabic literature prior to Islam, the Jahili poetry and the Jahili literature that existed. And it was very, very powerful stuff. It still exists today. Very, very powerful, very, very difficult to understand, but amazing in its depth. And when you understand it and you study it a bit, you finally realize how good these people were with their own language. They were masters of linguistics by far. They didn't know much and they didn't achieve much. On almost every other field of life, they failed very beautifully. But when it came to this, when it came to the mastering of their own language, second to none. I don't believe there's anything else that is as impressive as their ability, because the laws of poetry, Arabic poetry, are extremely strict. Extremely strict, very difficult. It makes it very, very hard to that's why very few people today actually even attempt it. But when you study what they were able to do with with the strictness of all these laws, it's baffling. So these surahs start with Alif Lam Mim, all these letters. And there's no other, it never happened elsewhere. I mean, no one did this. It wasn't the norm. No one stood in before a sermon would say letters and then start giving the sermon. This was the first time. So some of the reasons for this is that this would draw attention. This would draw attention. The Prophet ﷺ was really good at doing that when he gave his sermons and he talked. When he spoke, he always drew attention. Like when he gave the khutbah of Wada, the final khutbah during Hajj, he would stay, for example, he would stand up and say, "What day is it? What month is this?" And he would ask it a couple of times. And the people, usually when I start talking, I just start babbling, and then if you have bad experience in halaqat, you doze away and khalas, because it's boring. It's just the same thing. But the Prophet ﷺ always made sure when he started a sermon, he started in a weird way, where you had no choice but to listen. What is he doing? What day is it? What place is it? What month is it? Repeating it several times. Every time they answered, he would correct them. So at this point, they wanted to know what the issue is. And examples of that are many in his. Sometimes he would stand up and give a khutbah of 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes. Sorry, maybe 30 seconds. He would stand up and say, "Ayyuhan nas, صلوا الأرحام وأطعموا الطعام وأفشوا السلام وصلوا بالليل والناس نيام تدخلوا الجنة بسلام." And he is done. Imagine you have people coming from all over the place to come for a khutbah, and you speak maybe 20 words, and that's the end of it. That itself made people talk for months after that. Remember? He said 20 words. We all came over. He said 20 words and he came down. If you were 30 seconds late, you missed the whole khutbah. You weren't there for it. But people talked about this for months later. Alayhi salatu wasalam once got on the minbar, recited Surah Qaf. That's it. You stood on the minbar. Qaf wal Quran al-Majid. He recited the whole surah and he came down. That was the end of it. Didn't say anything else. So he would do things, alayhi salatu wasalam, that make people think. For example, one of the things he would, whenever he started, Inna alhamdulillah, when I say that is your cue to sleep. Right? That's the lullaby during Jum'ah time. Inna alhamdulillahi nahmaduhu wa nasta'inu. I can see as I go on, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inu. I can see people slowly just kind of falling to sleep. It became that. But back then, the Prophet ﷺ, when he said these words, no one had ever heard that before. To the point where there's at least 3 stories that I can tell you from the seerah of people who accepted Islam just based on them. And they came to him and they said, "Ya Muhammad, explain to me Islam." So we would start, "Alhamdulillah, ahmaduhu wa asta'inuhu wa u'minu bihi wa atawakkalu alayhi wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Man yahdihillahu fahuwa al-muhtad wa man yudlil falan tajida lahu waliyyan murshida." And then he wants to talk and he said, "A'id alayhi." Can you repeat that again? So the Prophet ﷺ would repeat it. And then he wants to explain Islam. No, repeat that again. So repeat that again. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأنك رسوله. It's just the way he put it, the way he said it, what they meant, the words themselves, and the way that they're structured, and what they actually mean. The concept they bring forward was so powerful, and we killed that a long time ago. But this was what I'm trying to say. So the Quran itself had a similar way, starting out by Alif Lam Mim, just letters, and it was a form of challenge. Aren't these the letters that you use? You write poetry, don't you? You write literature. You write beautiful stuff. Aren't these the letters? Yeah. Well, let's see if you can do something similar to this. Let's see if you can bring something similar to this. And you can't. And that's why the Quran is filled with these challenges. Bring me a book like it. Okay, bring me a guidance like it. Okay, bring me 10 surahs like it. Okay, bring me maybe a surah like it. Okay, bring me an ayah. Anything. Can you do anything like this? It's the same letters, aren't they? Alif, lam, you're just rubbing it in. Whenever you read a book that's written by someone, by a human, at the beginning of the book, the introduction is always filled with humility. It's enormous, no. And any book, when you read the introduction, is always, I gifted to this person and to that person, and I tried my best, and if there's mistakes, that's how it is, and hopefully this will help people and all that stuff. Because it's written by human beings, and we know that we're flawed. This book here doesn't start like that. This book here does not begin with any of that. It begins with a challenge. Alif, lam, mim. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابِ. This is the book. لَا رَيْبَ. There is no doubt. Or لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. There is no doubt within it. However you want to read it, it works out. لَا رَيْبَ. There is no doubt. فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Within it you will find guidance to those who have piety. Or looking for guidance, or looking for a better way of life. Again, the choice of words here, when he says muttaqeen, is very important. How can it be a book of guidance if we're starting out? Well, you don't know anything yet. How are you muttaqi or not muttaqi at this point? Are you understanding my question? How are you supposed to be a person of piety if you just started? You didn't say anything yet. How do I know? No. See, piety is a human condition. Either you're someone who is looking for it, or you're not. You're someone who feels that there's a better way to do all this, that I can be better, I need to be better. There is something better than the way I'm living, or that's not something that you care for at all. If that is something that you care for, then there is guidance in this book for you. And if this is not something that you care for, then you won't find much in it. And it kind of brings that off right off the bat. Right off the bat, this is how it is. If you're searching for something, if you feel that part missing, if there's a hole somewhere in your heart that you can't seem to fill it with anything, and you know that there's more to this than what your eyes can see, then you will find guidance here. But if that's not the question, it's important to know who the Quran is going to benefit. I feel when we do da'wah, sometimes we don't realize that part. I know that everyone here has family members and friends and people that they know that aren't interested in this at all. Completely, correct? You must know people who are not interested in any of this. You talk to them, they're friends, you spend time with them, but you'll never bring this up. And if you do try and bring it up, the backlash will be horrible. It won't work. Well, why? Well, because they're not really in search of anything. Why? You can't get someone to find something if they don't know they're missing it. Right? If you're not trying to find a direction, then it doesn't really matter which way you walk in. When you come to the masjid and you come to a dars and you read the Quran, we have to be similar in terms that we're looking for something. We feel that there's more to this. We feel we can be better. We know that there's a bigger picture to all of this, and we're constantly seeking that answer. That's why فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ right at the beginning. And then the introduction down to ayah number 16, or even you can go farther at night, number 20. It breaks down the human race to three groups. It talks about the muttaqeen, those who are seeking that. They're trying to be good, they want to be better, and they're seeking guidance. And then there's a group of those who don't believe at all. And those people are talked about in the first 5 ayat, right? الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ. Those who believe in you and believe in the hereafter and believe in the unseen, and they perform their prayers and they give their zakah. These are the first 5 ayat talk about those who have taqwa. The ayat after that, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, the second group, those who disbelieve, those who don't want any of this. سواء عليهم, that's what the ayah says. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, the ones who disbelieved, who made that decision, aren't looking for anything. They don't feel that they're missing anything. Everything is fine for them. They're happy the way they are. سواء عليهم, there's no point. أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ أَمْ لَمْ تُنذِرْهُمْ. Whether you give them, whether you warn them and teach them or you don't, makes no difference. They're not going to believe. Why? ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة ولهم عذاب عظيم. Their hearts have been sealed. So here's an example of a phrase the Quran uses. I'm going to say it now, and it'll help us through the rest of the Quran. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I have guided someone, yahdillah, or He says, yudillullah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala misguides someone, or He says, khatama ala, meaning He has sealed the heart of someone within dunya. How are we supposed to understand these phrases within the Quran? Right? Understanding them are very important. Why? Because if you understand them in the form that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making a decision, He is saying that you're going to be good, and you're going to be bad, and I'm going to make sure you don't understand any of this, and I'm going to open your heart to this, as a choice that He is making for you, meaning He's predisposing you to a condition that you have no ability to actually change, that's a huge problem. That's a huge problem. That is basically challenging the premise of religions in general. Why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send a book and give us a choice if He's already predestining us to doing one thing or not doing it, or doing the other? If it's already been chosen for us, then what's the point? So He says, خَتَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sealed their hearts and their ears, and upon their eyes there's a veil, there's something they can't see. So, these people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already predestined for punishment. Is that what this means? I hope in your mind, no, that's not what it means. Now what does it mean? What does it mean? When He says, I guide and I misguide, what that means is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala offers the guidance to those who are looking for it, to those who are actively seeking it, who are trying to get it. He will guide. Those who He misguides are the ones who don't want the guidance, who are refusing it, so He misguides them. Those who don't want to see anything, they don't want to hear, they don't want to understand, they don't want to comprehend, they're not looking for anything, so their hearts are sealed. He is not doing it against their will. This is what they have asked for, this is what they want, this is what they're doing, so they get what they want. It's not something against their will. Understanding it that way is very important, or else none of the Quran will make any sense to you. So, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ, the disbelievers, whether you tell them, whether you warn them or you don't warn them, they will not believe, because they have seals on their eyes, hearts, and on their hearts, ears, and there's a veil on their eyes. It's not because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala predestined them that to them. They have no choice. This is going to be. No, this is what they chose. This is what they chose, and since they chose that, that's what they were given. Once they change their choice, once they say, Ya Rabb, we want something different, He will lift the seal and take away the veil, and the Quran will enter their heart, as all the non-Muslims who became Muslim in history did. As all non-Muslims who became Muslim later. Certain people were the Ladina Kafaru, and then a moment later, a couple of years, they became Ladina Amanu. Well, how did that work? I thought that he was the Ladina Kafaru, so he must have a seal on his heart. Well, it was lifted. Well, why? Because it's all about whatever you choose. And every other usage of words like that in the Quran, that is what they mean, and that's how you're supposed to deal with them. He never, subhanahu wa ta'ala, He never does, never did, never will make a choice for you in terms of where you're going to go, and whether you're going to be guided or misguided. He will ease guidance for you sometimes. He will make it difficult for you other times. But it's all based on choices that you have made, and things that you are doing, and directions you've already started embarking on. But subhanahu wa ta'ala will not force guidance upon anyone, and He will not force misguidance upon anyone, and He won't change the way you think against your will with no choice. And that is isn't that a maxim? Isn't that just like a self-evident point? How does religion work without that being a very clear point? So whenever you read one of these verses like that, you have to make sure you understand what it means. So if you look at it, 5 verses that talk about the believers, only 5 at the beginning of at the introduction of the surah, or the introduction of the Quran, let's say. 5 verses talk about the believers, and then only 2 talk about the disbelievers. Why only 2? We're going to talk about 20 verses here. 5 believers, 2 disbelievers, and the rest talk about that third group. Who is the third group? Everyone in between. There's those who have made a clear choice. Ya Rabbi, we want to come to you. We're going to do it all the right way. We have taqwa. We're doing it the right way. Read the first 5 verses of the surah. There are people who said, there's no point. Whether you offer them guidance or you don't makes no difference. They're not interested. They're not looking for anything. They don't want anything. So don't waste your time. And then there's everyone in between, that gray area of people who are on the rails. They're not on the fences. They don't know. Sometimes they fall. Sometimes they make it. Sometimes they don't. They're lost, basically. They're not completely against it. But then again, they're not fully committed to it. Maybe they don't know much about it. Maybe it's not the right time in their lives. But when you recite the rest of the verses, these are what the rest of the verses talk about. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَقُولُ آمَنَّا بِاللَّهِ وَبِالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَمَا هُمْ بِمُؤْمِنِينَ. And there are people who say, we believe in Allah, I believe in the hereafter, but they really aren't. وَمَا هُمْ بِمُؤْمِنِينَ. They really aren't believers. It's a very interesting thing at the beginning of the Quran. It's very scary, actually. If you're reading this book if you when you bought a book, you start reading it, right? And this is like the 14th or 15th verse you come by, and it says some people will say we believe in Allah, we believe in the hereafter, but no, but they're not believers. يخادعون الله والذين آمنوا وما يخدعون إلا أنفسهم. They're trying to fool Allah and others, and they're only fooling themselves. It's not working. You can say what you want. Say, words are cheap. They mean nothing. They really do. I talk about this a lot in other, maybe in different settings than this. We grew up, at least this is how I grew up. Maybe you grew up differently, but I'll tell you how I grew up. We grew up, I was told that all it takes to get to Jannah is just certain words that you need to say, and if you say them long enough, you'll make it. Just make sure you say them. And if you say you're good, regardless of what you end up doing, you'll be fine. Just make sure these words are said all the time, just say them a lot. And regardless of whether you actually follow them or not, or you understand any of it, or you actually do, it doesn't really matter as long as you have the ability to continue to say these words. And I felt, and I feel, or I know for a fact that mentality and that culture regarding our deen has been very, very detrimental. It's really caused a lot of difficulties for us. Because the Prophet ﷺ 100% did not behave like that. And the Sahaba never understood things like that. And yet we continue to behave that way. Well, I said La ilaha illallah, so I'm good. Look at all the people around me who don't say La ilaha illallah. If people are going to go to Jahannam, I'm definitely not first in line. I mean, I've said it where they haven't said it ever, so I should be good. And that's basically it's a hanger. You're just hanging you're just buffering things. You don't want to deal with what is real. Because we misunderstood what he meant by this. Even though the first 15 verses of the book that you believe in says there are some people who will say Amanna billah. It says they say it. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَقُولُ. They say آمَنَّا بِاللَّهِ وَبِالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. We believe in Allah and we believe in the hereafter, but it means nothing. But they said it, Ya Rab. If saying it is enough, then these people should make it at some point. But then when you go through the verses, it actually gets worse and worse. And when they're told, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ لَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ, don't be those who corrupt the earth. Don't cause corruption. Don't do ifsad. قَالُوا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ مُصْلِحُونَ. No, we're doing the right thing. We're doing it right. أَلَا إِنَّهُمْ هُمُ الْمُفْسِدُونَ. No, they're not. They're not. Because they just say one thing and they're doing something else. It's very scary. The munafiqeen, the grey area. The surah at the beginning of the Quran establishes 3 groups. There is the really good, and then there's the ones who aren't interested at all, leave them alone. And then everyone in between. And these people in between, they get the longest verses, and the most examples. مَثَلُهُمْ كَمَثَلِ الَّذِي اسْتَوْقَدَ نَارًا فَلَمَّا أَضَاءَتْ مَا حَوْلَهُ ذَهَبَ اللَّهُ بِنُورِهِمْ. It's like they were given guidance, they were given a light in the middle of darkness, and just when they were supposed to use it, they turned off their own light. ذَهَبَ اللَّهُ بِنُورِهِمْ. Another example. Does Allah turn it off against their will? No. But ذَهَبَ اللَّهُ بِنُورِهِمْ means their light was taken away because they didn't want it. They acted like it wasn't there. They didn't use that light to guide their direction. Again, another example of the same thing that I talked about a few minutes ago. Summun, bukmun, umyun. It's like they can't hear, see, or speak. It's like none of their senses are working in terms of the book that's right in front of them. وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ آمِنُوا كَمَا آمَنَ النَّاسِ قَالُوا أَنُؤْمِنُ كَمَا آمَنَ السُّفَهَاءُ. And they're told to believe the way other people are believing, meaning the same manner, meaning following the same rulings, behaving in the same way. They say, we're going to do it like these ignorants. Sufaha, the people that are not worthy, or the people who are lesser than us. And the ayat kept on coming. أَلَا إِنَّهُمْ هُمُ الْمُفْسِدُونَ أَلَا إِنَّهُمْ هُمُ السُّفَهَاءُ. Indeed, they're the ones who are corrupt, and they're the ones who are lesser than everyone. They just don't know. They just don't know. It's a very scary beginning of the Quran, telling you there are 3 groups. Hopefully, inshallah, you're in the first one. Hopefully, you're not in the second. But there's a very high possibility that we're somewhere in that middle. There's a very high possibility that we're saying one thing, and He's subhanahu wa ta'ala looks at us and, you say amanna, but this is not iman. Because you're not behaving the way the mu'mineen behave. And you're not acting the way the mu'mineen act. And it's not worth anything. That's the first 20 ayat. Introduction not over yet. Introduction gives, first of all, talks about the book. This is the book. There's no doubt in this book. This book is here to guide. Then here's the 3 types of people. Here's muttaqeen, kafirin, and then everyone in between. And then the first ya ayyuha that you come across in the Quran. The first ya ayyuha. And ya ayyuha means, oh, those who. It's calling out to someone. It doesn't come in the terms of alladhina amanu, right? It comes in terms ya ayyuhan nas, ayah number 21. Calling upon all people. Again, the universality of the Quran, you'll see it right at the beginning. Ya ayyuhan nas. Since he established a different way people are going to deal with all this, So what are we supposed to do? Ya ayyuhan nas, u'budu rabbakum. It's a hint to the job that we're going to be introduced to in ayah number 30 very soon. U'budu rabbakum. You are here to serve your Lord. You can say, no, u'budu means worship. Translation is a big problem.